Oh, you're just coming in now? Only a loser who's late for a meeting gets fired. My boss, John, sneered as he pushed me hard just as I walked into the office. What? What's wrong, John? The $4 million deal with Walter Trading should have started already. I had no idea what John was talking about. With a smug look, he showed me some documents, but I calmly spoke the truth. The meeting was yesterday. What? The documents slipped from his hands and scattered on the floor. My name is Michael. I'm 45 years old and have been working for over 20 years as a sales representative for a food import and distribution company. I love finding unique and delicious products to import and bring to consumers' tables, enriching their daily meals and making them smile. I started working right after high school, eager to enter the workforce, and never felt disadvantaged by not having a college degree. Most of my colleagues were college graduates, but once you're in the field, that doesn't matter. I was satisfied with the work environment, where we competed and cooperated, and was blessed with great colleagues. However, since the new department manager, John, arrived, every day has been full of confusion. John, an elite with a degree from Harvard, became our new sales manager at the young age of 39, promising a bright future. All my previous supervisors had been diligent and good at resolving conflicts within the team, helping us find solutions even when we made mistakes. So, we were confident when waiting for the new manager, but our expectations were completely shattered. John, the first Harvard graduate in the company, was very favored by our CEO, Mr. Brown. Aware of Mr. Brown's expectations, John declared on his first day, "With me here, the sales department is going to contribute even more. We're going to boost this company's performance." We welcomed him enthusiastically, thinking the department and company would thrive with his leadership, but we soon realized he had a major flaw. John looked down on employees with lower educational backgrounds. He probably judged people by their education because of his own hard-earned high degree, but only a few employees graduated from universities equivalent to or higher than Harvard. Because John continued to treat subordinates differently based on their alma mater, the sales department became a tense environment. It was no surprise that John, who didn't acknowledge anyone below Harvard level, especially targeted me, a high school graduate. "Where have you been, Michael? Skipping work just because I wasn't watching?" Though I'm older than him, John always treated me bad. He constantly accused me of slacking off, which was never true. I always calmly corrected him, but his attitude never changed, leaving me bewildered. I was meeting with a client. "I'm heading back to my usual tasks now. High school grads can't do their job and are rebellious. If you have time to talk, get to work." His blatant harassment made the job I once loved increasingly miserable. Moreover, he'd make me prepare materials for the next day's meeting just as I was about to leave, or blame me for others' mistakes. Even when I mustered the courage to consult with Mr. Brown, he wouldn't even look at me, saying, "John is your boss. Follow his directions. John is a brilliant Harvard graduate, so just do as he says." Though I wanted to argue, I bit my tongue, realizing it wouldn't change anything. Every day was a struggle, but I endured John's harsh treatment. Taking advantage of my silence, John started dragging me around as his servant. If this continued, I feared I'd collapse from exhaustion. Desperately trying to find a solution, the situation changed unexpectedly. One day, as usual, I was accompanying John on a field visit. On our way back from a client, we were walking by the station when I suddenly heard a heavy thud behind me. Surprised, I turned around to see a woman who looked younger than me lying on the road. Her face was pale, and she was struggling to breathe shallowly. She seemed to have suddenly fallen ill. Her eyes were closed, and she was sweating profusely, looking like she was in pain. It seemed like she might have hit her head when she fell, as there was a possible wound on her forehead. I quickly rushed over to her and spoke. "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" "Yes." After calling out a few times, she slowly raised her face, but her large eyes blinked anxiously. Her soft cheeks were round and feminine, but they were still pale. Her beautiful, shoulder-length black hair swayed as she seemed to be trying to steady her breathing. I spoke gently to calm her down. Don't push yourself. You don't seem to be injured, but let's call an ambulance just in case. I took out my phone, wondering if it would be better to get her something cold to drink instead of waiting for an ambulance. Just then, an irritated voice came from above. I looked up in surprise to see John, standing there with his arms crossed, looking down at me. I had completely forgotten about him. I was about to apologize when John shouted at me, "What are you dawdling for? Get back to the office now. There's a ton of work waiting." "I'm sorry, John. I'm worried about this woman. Can you wait just a few more minutes until the ambulance arrives?" I said politely, but John's face twisted with even more displeasure, and he spat out his words. "Is she your sister or something? No, right? Leave her alone. Our company is the one paying your salary. As soon as the ambulance arrives, I'll head straight back. I'll stay here alone, so please go ahead, John." I couldn't leave a woman who was fainting and possibly injured. I offered to stay by myself, which seemed to anger John even more. "Don't be ridiculous. You're gonna do unrelated work for some random passerby? If that's what you're gonna do, then do whatever you want." With that, he turned his back and walked away. He didn't have to speak like that in front of someone who was feeling unwell, but fortunately or unfortunately, the woman was still groggy and seemed unaware of our exchange. Hoping she hadn't heard us, I stayed with her until the paramedics arrived a few minutes later. I then hurried back to the office. However, in that short time, John's anger seemed to have only grown. As soon as I stepped into the sales department, I was called out with a voice like thunder. Of course, it was John. "So the slacker finally returns. Even after I told you off, you didn't come after me. I get it now. Your attitude towards work is pathetic. I'm truly sorry for taking time away from work. But there was someone who was really sick. I couldn't just leave her there." No matter how politely I explained, John remained furious. In fact, the more I tried to explain, the angrier he seemed to get. "All you do is make excuses. I can't trust someone as irresponsible as you with any work." With that declaration, from the next day on, John stopped giving me work instructions. I had no idea what to do at the office, but strangely, I felt relieved. Since John had transferred to our department, he hadn't assigned me any proper work. Now that he was leaving me alone, I seized the opportunity to work at my own pace like I used to. To my delight, I got the chance to negotiate a new deal with the company. It was a significant deal worth $4 million. The company, a major trading firm named Walter Corporation, reached out to me to explore the food sector. I did wonder why they chose me, but I was eager to make the most of the opportunity, so I prepared diligently. I'm sure John noticed my efforts, but strangely, he didn't say anything. Given his past behavior, he would have usually made snide comments or tried to reassign the project to someone else. But John just acted like I didn't exist. It was eerie, but I decided it was better than being directly interfered with. So I focused on the deal, preparing tirelessly until the negotiation day. But it turned out to be the calm before the storm, as John was about to cause a problem. One day, when I returned to the office, John suddenly confronted me, yelling at the top of his lungs. "Hey, coming in this late, huh? You're fired for being late to the meeting." John smirked as he declared this to me, then shoved me hard. I stumbled back a few steps, bewildered and panicking. What do you mean, John? The $4 million deal with Walter Trading is supposed to have started already, and you've left the important documents lying around. What were you thinking? Startled, I checked my desk, and sure enough, the documents for the deal with Walter Trading that were there until yesterday were completely gone. I turned around to see John holding the documents I had prepared, showing them off smugly. "It seems you've caused the company a great loss. This is why high school graduates are no good. As the sales manager, I'll go apologize directly." But the meeting, I reached out to John, but he deftly avoided my hand and looked down at me, grinning. "I'll take over this deal. A guy like you with no sense of responsibility and no remorse for being late is fired." After declaring this in one breath, John stared at me smugly. I had been listening to John's remarks all this time, and I finally got a chance to speak. What on earth is John talking about? I spoke the truth. The meeting was finished yesterday. What? The documents scattered from John's hand onto the floor. But the schedule here says the meeting is today, starting in 15 minutes. Are you trying to deceive me? No, the client from Walter Trading requested a sudden change to yesterday. Even after hearing my explanation, John wasn't convinced and turned red with anger. When the date changes, why don't you update the documents? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Updating? These documents were for my personal use. So, I thought it would be fine as long as I, the person in charge, knew about the change. John stomped his feet in frustration and continued his outrageous claims. Anyway, you don't need to come to work anymore. A person who leaves the office to help someone and doesn't report a change in the meeting schedule to their boss isn't needed here. But being told not to come to work left me in a state of shock. I tried hard to explain, but John forced his opinion through. I've already told HR about your bad work attitude. Now I just have to take it to the president and get you fired. I've been working hard all this time, and if I'm gone now, what will happen to the deal? I desperately argued, but John smirked triumphantly. The deal will be handled by me, your superior. So pack your things and leave. No way. Technically, even a superior doesn't have the authority to fire me. But at that moment, I was so shocked by having my carefully prepared deal taken away that I couldn't think straight and ended up being chased out of the office by John. I stood on the street for a while, slowly beginning to understand the situation. Standing around wouldn't help, so I started to walk home, trudging along, and when I finally reached the station, I heard a familiar voice and stopped. Oh, aren't you Michael? You are. Your name was. The woman standing before me was the one I helped at the station that day. She chuckled and then thanked me again. Again, thank you so much for that time. My name is Amy Walter. Thanks to you, I'm completely better now. No, I just did what anyone would do. As I replied, I was stunned by the name Amy Walter. Because that name. Excuse me, but are you by any chance? Yes. Just as I was about to ask, my phone rang. It was Mr. Brown, the president, calling about my firing. Feeling gloomy, thinking the news had already reached Mr. Brown, I reluctantly answered. Michael, where are you? Come to my office immediately. But I was just told by John that I was fired. I could hear Mr. Brown gasp on the other end. He muttered things like no way and unbelievable for a while, then ordered me in a strong voice. Fired? I heard you resigned. Anyway, Walter Trading requested to speak with you about the $4 million deal. Just get to my office quickly. Stunned by the sudden end of the call, Amy smiled at me. I was just on my way to your company. Let's go together. I blinked in surprise. Her last name is Walter, and the reason I'm being called back is Walter Trading. With a sense of astonishment, I looked at Amy, who had a playful expression on her face. Are you? Yes. Walter Trading is my father's company, and I'm the person in charge of this deal. Walter Trading is a company even people uninterested in the economy have seen on TV or in magazines. I was so shocked that the daughter of the president of such a well-known company was Amy that my legs nearly gave out. But I managed to return to the company with her. When we entered the company, the receptionist, unaware of the situation, looked at me curiously. I ignored the questioning glances about why I had returned so soon after leaving and proceeded forward with a light greeting. Entering the president's office, I found a pale-faced Mr. Brown and a frowning John. As soon as John saw me, he angrily raised his eyebrows. Michael, what sneaky tricks did you use? The client demanded you as the point of contact. Complaint? No, I didn't do anything. I hurriedly denied it, and Amy, standing beside me, stepped forward. Although John had seen Amy when she fainted, he didn't recognize her and glared at her with a disgruntled face. Who are you? What are you doing here? Only authorized personnel are allowed in. It wasn't Amy who panicked at these words, but Mr. Brown. He hurriedly explained the situation to John, trembling. John, apologize immediately. This lady is the vice president of Walter Trading. She came here specifically for the deal. John skeptically scrutinized Amy. Though she was in a neat black suit, she was so beautiful that she looked like a model, making it hard to believe she was real. John seemed to doubt that such a beautiful Amy could indeed be the little VP of Walter Trading. But then Amy calmly spoke. I came here today as the person in charge of the deal. John, you don't understand why I insisted on having Michael as the point of contact, do you? That's right. I'm Michael's superior. Since Michael is leaving the company, I took over the task. Do you have any complaints? John's harsh voice made the tense atmosphere in the president's office even more charged. As John glared, seemingly about to explode with anger, Amy responded calmly. That's because I trust Michael as a person. Recently, Michael helped me. Thanks to him, I'm able to work again. Caught off guard, I hastily replied. No, I didn't do much. I just happened to be there, but if you hadn't been there, I would have collapsed alone. I got to the hospital and received treatment all because of you. Surprised by the unexpected turn of events, Amy thanked me again, appreciating deeply. Mr. Brown, his face pale, began explaining the situation to me. Actually, Walter Trading insisted on having you as the point of contact for this deal. But I just heard about your resignation and John taking over, so I was utterly confused. Resignation. As I said before, John fired me. Hearing my words, John glared at me as if telling me to shut up. But with a stern look from Mr. Brown, John finally grasped his situation and began to tremble. No, fired. No way, Michael. I just wanted to warn you about your unprofessional attitude. Huh? That was a warning? But you clearly said I was fired. When I couldn't help but object, John furrowed his brows and yelled at me. Shut up. You're not in a position to voice your opinion. Oh, so this is how you always order your subordinates around, John? It makes sense now, like how you told Michael to leave me behind when I collapsed that day. At that time, Amy seemed dazed, but it appeared she had heard our conversation clearly. John flinched at Amy's sharp remark, but still tried to make excuses. I apologize for that. I had work waiting for me at the office. But if I had known you were the vice president of Walter Trading, I would have gladly helped. That's why I can't trust you. You think of helping because I'm the vice president? That's why I chose Michael over you for the deal. As Amy pointed out calmly, Mr. Brown hurriedly joined the conversation, his face turning red. John, how rude of you to change your attitude based on the person. No matter how impressive your academic background is, it's embarrassing to have someone like you as a subordinate. Mr. Brown said harshly and turned to Amy, seeking her agreement. His desperate attempt to avoid losing a significant deal made him look like he was blatantly sucking up. When I discussed the deal with John, he sided with him just because of his academic background. Isn't the president also changing his attitude based on the person? I sighed lightly, thinking that. Meanwhile, John, who had received harsh criticism, stared at the floor, trembling slightly. The fact that I, whom he looked down on, took the deal away from him. That Amy, the vice president of Walter Trading, completely disliked him. And now Mr. Brown, who had always supported him, turned and harshly reprimanded him. His mind couldn't keep up with reality. As he glared around at everyone in the president's office, he said something unbelievable. Fine. I'll let Michael have it this time. But I'm the one who trained Michael to be so highly valued by Walter Trading. We were stunned by John's shameless logic and continued to listen in silence. I trained my subordinates, so it's only natural that I, their superior, get recognized too. Michael should repay my guidance by stepping down from the responsibility. The only things you instructed me to do were menial tasks unrelated to the job. You never gave me real work because I only graduated high school. When I objected, John got even angrier and got in my face, spitting as he spoke. You're supposed to work in the right place. The world is all about give and take, isn't it? Because low-educated people like you do the menial work, excellent employees like me can work freely. That's so selfish. John continued to insist on his righteousness, not reflecting, but rather puffing out his chest. I'm the company's ace, so of course, an inexperienced subordinate like Michael should let me take the credit. Especially for a big deal like this. Is it the ace's job to propose fraudulent deals to our company's employees? Amy's sudden statement made the room fall silent. Mr. Brown and I were stunned, but John, who had been so confident, suddenly became nervous. What? Fraudulent deals? Are you kidding? There's no way I would do such a thing. What proof do you have? If you want proof, here it is. One of our employees said you proposed inflating the invoices for this deal. At her sudden accusation, John froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. But Amy calmly spread out her documents and explained to Mr. Brown and me. He said you suggested inflating the invoices and splitting the extra profit between the person in charge and you. The inflated amount was supposed to be $400,000. $400,000. Mr. Brown turned pale at the enormous sum. John kept looking back and forth between Mr. Brown and Amy, insisting, "That's not true. It's a misunderstanding. It was just a joke." But Amy quietly took out her phone. Our employee was confused and brought this evidence to me. Do you still claim it's a misunderstanding? Amy's slender finger touched the screen, starting a video, and John's boastful voice immediately filled the room. All you have to do is follow my instructions. You'll make a huge profit of $200,000. It's a great deal, right? The hidden camera video showed John sitting next to a man in a suit, grinning. He was patting the confused man, repeatedly persuading him to go along with the inflated invoices. The person in charge recorded this video to prevent any trouble. There's no better evidence than this, right? This is all fake. The video is doctored. It's a fake video. John began yelling, spitting as he spoke, but no one there believed a word he said. The fact that he was so flustered was proof enough. With Amy and Mr. Brown staring at him with straight faces, John's face turned bright red as he shouted, "Damn it, I'm an elite graduate from Harvard, and yet you choose this incompetent, this high school grad over me and set me up? Shut up already. Go home and wait for your punishment. You'll probably be fired. Be prepared for that." As soon as Mr. Brown spoke, security, alerted by the commotion, came in and subdued the raging John. Despite his resistance, John was eventually dragged out of the president's office by force. Subsequent internal investigations revealed that John had been forcibly taking over projects handled by his subordinates and claiming them as his achievements. In reality, John had secured very few contracts on his own. Even Mr. Brown, who had praised John as a brilliant Harvard graduate and the company's best talent, was deeply troubled by this revelation. Furthermore, it turned out that after poaching clients, John had a pattern of engaging in fraudulent deals like this one. All the fraudulent transactions he had carried out were thoroughly investigated. As a result, John found it impossible to stay at the company and decided to resign. He left before he could be fired. Later, an emergency board meeting was held, and John was sued for a total of $8 million in damages. After the company formally filed a civil lawsuit for $8 million in damages, John found a new job in offshore fishing, where he's been working hard. He spends most of the year on a boat, working tirelessly to save his pay and cover the damages. Meanwhile, I received a formal apology from Mr. Brown after the incident. But Mr. Brown maintained his stance, saying, "I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I was completely fooled by John's show of competence. Both you and I are victims here. That made me finally decide to leave the company. Despite having worked there for many years, I felt I couldn't continue under Mr. Brown's attitude. I'm telling you, reconsider. With your age and education, where do you think you can get another job? And what about the $4 million deal with Walter Trading? Don't worry about it. I've already secured my next job. And as for the deal, Walter Trading is reconsidering it as well." With that, I left the company I had worked at for many years. Instead, I started working at Walter Trading. After that, Amy took me to meet the president of Walter Trading, who is actually her father, and he liked me enough to hire me. As a result, the deal I was supposed to handle was concluded with me working as an employee of Walter Trading. It was really a strange twist of fate, wasn't it? It's all thanks to you, Amy, for believing in me. I appreciate it deeply to Amy. Helping someone in need is natural, but how many people in this world are as sincerely grateful as Amy? When I expressed my honest feelings, Amy smiled and took my hand. I just returned the kindness you showed me, Michael. Let's continue to support each other both at work and in life. Yes. What? Both at work and in life? My voice flipped in surprise, but Amy just laughed and squeezed my hand gently. It seems my happiness is far from over.